Hey everyone, welcome to the New Populist. I'm Dave Brown. If you're new to this channel, please like and subscribe. Well, it seems that the Democrats are on the move. One thing I like to do is pay attention to all the little small things, put them together, and sort of figure out what the Democrats are planning for the months to come. Now, to be fair, it doesn't take a genius if you're paying attention. It's pretty obvious, but let's walk through all of this right now. Per NBC News, Senate expected to shelve Build Back Better bill and move forward aggressively on voting rights. Now, why are they picking right now to focus on the voting rights? Well, the obvious thing is that 2022 is coming up and they want to make permanent all the voting changes they made in 2020. That's pretty obvious. And this brings me to an article that was in The Atlantic recently, written by Barton Gellman, and it was titled, "Trump's Next Coup Has Already Begun." Now, this is a very long piece, and it deserves its own video, and I'll probably do one pretty soon on it because it's a very important piece because it lays the groundwork for the Democrat strategy moving forward. And it covers two things. One is what happens if the Democrats lose and Republicans win. Well, they're implying that January 6th was just a dry run, and now the real deal is going to be 2024. So if Trump, DeSantis, or any Republican wins in 2024, democracy has been subverted and the election is stolen. What's the point of that? Well, it's pretty obvious. If you can throw as much slime and muck on the election of a Republican, you can hamstring their agenda. That happened with Trump in 2020 with the Russia hoax. For the first year and a half of his presidency, he was focused on Russia. There were members of his own party who were sort of straddling the fence. They weren't sure which way it was going to go. So they didn't want to commit too hard to his agenda or get behind him because they were thinking, well, if by chance this Russia stuff is true and he goes down and I'm on record as being in his corner, I could go down with him. So a lot of them were sitting on the sidelines waiting for things to sort of pan out. And of course, after a year and a half, it didn't. And then more of them got on his side. But Donald Trump did lose about a year and a half of his presidency. With this thing here, if they can cast 2024 as being democracy subverted, then the entire presidency of that Republican president will be basically working from a hole as far as having the initiative and getting anything done. They're going to be struggling the entire time. So that's one thing they're trying to do with this article, is to prevent any sort of momentum for Republicans if they were to win. The second thing, and this applies to right now, they want to take those election law changes that are made in 2020, make them permanent. We know that ballot harvesting and mail-in voting seems to help Democrats. Why? We can only speculate, and I think we all can speculate, and you know what I mean by that. And so they want to imply that if these laws aren't made permanent, that this is, again, democracy being subverted. So they want to get some impetus to have lawmakers change these laws at the national level. And so that brings us to right now and this new shift to focus on voting laws in the Senate. Well, what's happening right now in England? There's the breakout of Omicron. In the last 24 hours, they've had the most positive tests in any period or any 24-hour period since this pandemic began. It's something like 78,000. Now, why is that important? Well, this pandemic was first, or not the pandemic, but this Omicron variant was first detected in South Africa. And what we've seen over the last 2 years is that it starts in one place and then sort of balloons out. So right now it's hitting the UK and Europe, and probably sometime in January or even earlier here in the United States, we will get a huge surge in Omicron cases. Now, luckily, this variant seems to be milder, but that won't prevent the news, the politicians, to fearmonger and reinstitute indoor masking, vaccine requirements. And we've already seen that in California, New York, and Oregon. So They're ramping it up. And now, why is that important? Well, what was the pretext for changing the laws in 2020? The pandemic. So when we get this surge in January or earlier, and we will get this surge, that will be the environment that they will use in order to press some new laws to become permanent. And so we on the right, we have to be aware that this is their plan. As soon as we get the spike here and there's maximum fear mongering, that's when they push for new legislation to make mail-in voting and other provisions permanent. Now, one thing I noticed is that they're calling it civil rights. They're saying it's, about minority repression. So they're trying to make it out like right now, like it's not about the pandemic. But we know that once these numbers go up for Omicron, it'll be about that as well. And they'll gather that whole package, suppression of minorities and public safety, and use that to try to push a new bill over the finish line. Now, we have to watch out for Joe Manchin, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, some of the rhinos in the Senate. Those are the ones that will be the most vulnerable. And if there's a massive amount of pressure, those are the ones that will fold first. So we know what the left is going to try to do. This is what they did in 2020. And right now, they're gearing up for this next push to change these laws for 2022. We know the plan. We know what they're going to do. And we got to make sure that we fight back effectively. Hopefully we do that. We'll see. That's it for now. Also, one last thing. I am the author of a book called Black and White: How the Left is Destroying the Dream of Martin Luther King and Our Founding Fathers. If you want a discussion about race, not from some radical leftists, not from Antifa, not from Black Lives Matter, go ahead and pick it up. It's available on Amazon, and there will be a link in the description. Have a good day. Cheers.